What's up guys, it's Topsy, and for today's video we're going to be breaking down what if SpeedDuels had a Duelist Kingdom set box. And for today we're going to be breaking down the very first character in this roster with Bandit Keith. Not too long ago I actually ended up making a poll both on YouTube and Reddit asking the people what character they wanted to see getting an actual SpeedDuel deck the most. And by an overwhelming margin, Bandit Keith was the winner. So, the people asked for Bandit Keith, and I will deliver. Now, before we begin breaking down the character deck that I created for Bandit Keith alongside his brand new custom skills, I did want to break down some criteria that I ended up using when constructing all of these decks. I still did want to make these decks seem somewhat realistic as a SpeedDuel product. That means that because this is a large box, roughly over 50% of the cards in this set will be brand new to SpeedDuels, while the other ones are going to be reprints, so do keep that in mind. Additionally, I tried choosing cards that weren't too powerful and still made sense in a SpeedDuel format, alongside skills that make these decks more playable and were still somewhere around the threshold of a SpeedDuel skill, if that makes sense. I used many references while doing this, so hopefully they feel somewhat realistic. But with all that being said, let's get started. So as I teased in the very first video talking about this whole idea, I gave Bandit Keith a Barrel Dragon themed deck. And part of the reason that I ended up doing this for him is that this was, I guess, his most iconic boss monster during this arc of the anime. Don't get me wrong, he summoned many monsters like slot machines, I believe Machine King if I'm remembering correctly. He summoned a lot of cards, Blast Spider, but Barrel Dragon felt like the one that caused the most impact during this duel. So that's what I wanted to theme the whole idea around. Not only that, but I didn't feel like creating a whole Metal Zoa strategy. That seemed a little too jank, but don't worry, it does get representation in the miscellaneous pile. So Barrel Dragon seemed like the best idea, and I tried incorporating this whole Dark Machine aspect to the deck and imprinting some cards that felt really cool for the game. So with all that being said, let's break them down. So of course we have the boss monster themselves, Barrel Dragon. Barrel Dragon is a card that already exists in the current SpeedDuel game, yes it is, and it's such a cool boss monster. And I felt like getting a deck that actually made use of this card would have been super cool. Alongside the Barrel Dragon, continuing on with the Dark Machines, we also had Blast Spheres. This is a really annoying Dark Machine monster, but it is a card that currently exists in the game. Not only that, but this is one of the cards that Bandit Keith also used during this arc, so it made too much sense to put it in here. Moving on, we have Blowback Dragon. While Bandit Keith never actually used this card during the anime, at least I do not recall, it is one of those cards that is very Bandit Keith-esque, and not only that, but it also makes sense once you take a look at one of the cards that I have in his extra deck, that being Gatling Dragon, a card that's not currently in the game, but is really cool, and I wanted to go ahead and make use of it. So if we wanted to get the Gatling Dragon in the game, we needed to have both the Blowback Dragon and the Barrel Dragon. And with both these cards already existing in SpeedDuels, it seemed like a no-brainer to me. Continuing on, we have BM for Blast Spider. Now, I did consider giving him the original Blast Spider, but that card is, well, let's face it, booty cheeks. It is not good at all. However, this one right here, the retrain, is significantly better, alongside being a Dark Machine monster. So it just fit the theme very well. Not only that, but I felt like the effect it has, while it is powerful, it still felt tame enough for SpeedDuels. And without cards like Desperado Dragon in the game, I feel like this card could be completely fine in the game. While very powerful, I don't think it would break it in any way, shape, or form. However, I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. Moving on some more, we have Takoichi here. This is primarily here just as a Dark Machine name, and also because it gives the deck some little bit of consistency, so I kinda liked it. Next card up we have is Fusilier Dragon, the Dual Mode Beast. This is another card that I felt like just fit Bandit Keith's theme very well, and was one of those cards that I felt like could be in the game because it's surprisingly balanced. We don't have cards like Skill Drain in the game, so having to worry about something like that, a normal summonable 2800 attack monster, isn't as scary. Not only that, but like when you summon this card, you can't cheat it out. But when you do, its attack is cut in half, putting it at a 1400 attack stat, which isn't scary at all. And especially when you take into consideration that we have the skill heavy metal armor, spellproof armor, something like that. One of those Bandit Keith skills that just lets you normal summon normal machine monsters from your hand. And also gives him like targeting protection or something. I forget exactly. But if we have a skill like that in the game that lets you summon the LA Justice Colossus, I feel like this card would be completely fine in the game and wouldn't do all that much. It's honestly just such a cool, it's such a cool card. It's a dragon with like mounted machine guns on it. It just fits Bandit Keith so well. Continuing on, we have Machine Lord UR, and this card I kind of just think is really cool. It's not a dark machine, however, it is just a machine monster that fits the theming pretty well. Bandit Keith throughout the arc was a very aggressive duelist and prioritized just dealing damage to Joey in his duel, and having a card that just is able to attack everything on the field seems very much like in his realm. Not only that, but Machine Lord UR has a very, you know what, it's not a pitiful attack stat, but it's nothing that's going to be ruining the game. I mean, you could equip it with a card like 7 complete and make it a little more intimidating at a 2300 attack stat, but I feel like that's still fine. And overall, it just seems like a card that would be really cool to have in the game. Moving on some more, we have Planet Pathfinder, and we primarily have this guy here because we needed a way to search out our field spell that wasn't via the effect of Metaverse. While Planet Pathfinder might be a bit strong, I still think this card would be overall fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure that this card would be used a ton by the Union decks for the XYZ deck, but I feel like having to waste your normal summon on this card to get a field spell seems like a fair trade-off. If anything, I feel like this card could come to the game and maybe get put to like 2, 1, or 3, some form of limitation to balance it out, but I feel like it'd be okay. We then have the last 2 monsters in his deck with Twin Barrel Dragon and Mechanical Chaser. These are primarily here just because these are both cards that fit the theming for Bandit Keith himself. We have a Gun Dragon here, and Mechanical Chaser was one of the cards that he used against Yugi, if I'm not mistaken, when he was like possessed, just to round out the monster lineup. Overall, I really like the monsters that I chose to give him. They're really cool, they seem very cohesive as to their strategy, and it just feels very Bandit Keith-esque. I did consider building him a very heavy vanilla themed deck, but he kind of just already got that in the booster packs, and it would just have way more reprints that I wouldn't have liked to give him. So I feel like this direction was a lot cooler. But again, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. Moving down to the spell cards, we have 7 complete. I felt like we could not include this card. This is one of the kind of cards that he activated in the anime. He used it against Joey when he was cheating, and it's such an iconic card, and the whole deck is machine already, so it just makes too much sense. Next up is a wild one, and that is Approaching Machine. Now, don't get me wrong, this card I am fully aware is an OCG card. However, this is my box and I wanted to give this card. So what does Approaching Machine do? Well, the one important effect that it has is that it's able to add you a copy of Metalmorph from your deck to your hand, or a copy that is a Metalmorph trap card. And that's pretty much it. It does also have a graveyard effect where you're able to target a monster your opponent controls and change its battle position, essentially allowing you to do massive damage to your opponent with the Metalmorph that you searched out. Let's face it, that seems completely fine. It's a non-searchable spell card that searches you out a fairly balanced trap card in Metalmorph, and it gives you the ability to go ahead and change the battle position of a monster on the field, and we already have tons and tons of cards that are able to do that already in the game with Windstorm of Etiqua, Zero Gravity, we have My Skill in Battle City Sirens. Like, there's a ton of different things that can do that already in the game, and I feel like adding one more feels pretty okay. Continuing on, we have Break Draw as one of the equip spells for the deck. Again, we already mentioned Bandit Keith has a very aggressive deck that lets you beat down on their opponent, and giving them an equip spell that benefits you from doing that, it seems very much in tune with him. Not only that, but it's a card that already exists in the game, so it seems a-okay for me. We then have Heavy Metal Raiders. And the main reason I gave this card to Bandit Keith is, one, it has the iconic artwork of a lot of his boss monsters from the anime. Not only that, but we already have a skill in the game that is the exact same field spell as this one that was printed hella long ago. And I feel like at this point of the game, this card would be completely fine. We already have it in the game, as I said, and getting access to it right now only makes sense. The card isn't that broken. It's pretty cool. It makes Dark Machine decks significantly better. So having it, getting access to it seems really cool. Not only that, but I feel like it might be better to have it as a skill because it's you can activate it from the beginning of the duel as opposed to having to search it out during a duel. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like it's a-okay. Now, this is one of the cards that I thought it was a little more contentious, and that is Makina Armored Unit. And the main reason I say that is because you essentially create an endless conga line of assholes with this card, where each time a machine monster you control is destroyed, you get to special summon one with the exact same attribute, but less attack from your deck, which seems okay, but can get out of hand fairly quickly. Essentially, it makes every single one of those monsters on your field essentially become a card like Mystic Tomato. I don't know, I feel like just because it's a continuous spell card, it's easy to interact with your opponent just because we have so much backup removal in the game, so maybe that's the thing that makes it the most balanced. I feel like it could be okay, but I don't know, I'm willing to be persuaded on this. The last card we have for Bandit Keith is Overload Fusion, and I absolutely love this fusion card. As I said, it's already a card in the game, so that means it's a-okay to be printed here. But not only that, but it makes it a lot easier to bring out some of your boss monsters, because throughout a duel, if you're able to bring these guys out, and if they get outed, you can just you fusion summon your Gatling Dragon. I did want to prioritize making Barrel Dragon the boss monster. That's why I have a card that is in Overload Fusion, where this is like your last resort during a duel. And I kind of just like that theming of it. But yeah, this is just our main way that we're going to be fusion summoning our Gatling Dragon. On to the trap cards now. We have Proton Blast, and this card is so cool. This is a dedicated Barrel Dragon trap card that is really cool, and I don't think it's unfair at all. The main reason I say this is because Proton Blast is first a continuous trap card, meaning that it's fairly slow, and because it's a continuous trap card, that means it's very prone to interaction from your opponent, and lastly, it's very dependent on luck, and that's one of the things that this whole deck is based on as well. And because of all those factors, I feel like this card could be completely fine to come into the game, and it just kind of gives you that extra anime-esque feeling to it, just because in the anime, Barrel Dragon works completely different. It's just able to like destroy the field based on like whether or not it had like a bullet on the chamber. But I feel like this card just fits too well into the theme of the deck. Next card up is Pulse Mines, and this is another one that's it's a wee bit strong. So if you don't know Pulse Mines, this was a very powerful trap card in Duel Links, and I feel like it would be the same deal here in SpeedDuels. And the main reason I say that is because it essentially just puts every monster your opponent controls after declaring an attack on a machine monster to defense mode, and that can be a very annoying type of interaction for your opponent. However, I feel like it could potentially be okay. If not, it could potentially get limited in some way, shape, or form. But Konami isn't a stranger to printing broken cards that have to get addressed later on in the format, and I would like to see Pulse Mines in the game. It's a pretty cool card. It would make Machine significantly more playable. Last two cards we have here are Rare Metalmorph and Time Machine. Two cards that already exist in the game, and two cards that were overdue for a reprint. Rare Metalmorph, for instance, is a card that is searchable for the deck, and it's just really cool because it gives an extra layer of protection to your machine monsters. And Time Machine is super iconic from his duel with Joey, so I feel like we just had to include it. But that's the main deck. I overall am a huge fan of what I created here. I think this looks like an incredibly fun sealed strategy, especially if you were to draft these in a non-constructed set. All the Bandit Keys fans in the comment section, let me know. Did I do your boy justice? Do you like the deck? Do you like the direction that I took? What cards would you take out of it? What cards would you add? I'd love to hear all your thoughts in the comment section below. For me, I like it a lot. I think this looks incredibly fun and would love it if it was introduced into the game. But now the important thing, how does this deck work with its skills? Well, the dedicated skill for the deck would be, for me, bring out the big guns. And what this skill essentially does, it makes summoning your Barrel Dragon significantly easier, and it gives you a chance to search out some of your Dark Machine monsters. So let's give it a read. Once per turn during your main phase, you can use one of the following skills. You contribute 1 Dark Machine monster on the field, and if you do, special summon 1 Barrel Dragon from your hand or graveyard. You can't normal summon or special summon other monsters the turn you activate this skill. I feel like overall, this is a very balanced way to cheat out your Barrel Dragon from wherever it is on the field. And I feel like having it be restricted to not summoning anything else besides the Barrel Dragon feels like a fair trade-off, at least to me. But let's continue. The second skill is, you can shuffle 2 Dark Machine monsters in your graveyard into the deck. Then add 1 level 6 or higher Dark Machine monster from your deck to your hand. And this is the second part of the effect that I feel like could potentially be a little strong, but I feel like it's balanced enough because you have to be playing a very dedicated machine dark strategy to be able to search out that monster. It needs quite a bit of setup, and while it is a little scary that it can search out a card like Jinzo, I feel like overall it wouldn't do anything all that bad for the game. And the last thing of this for this skill is that each of these skills can only be used once per duel. So putting a hard restriction as to how many times you can activate each of these skills, I feel like is the final cherry on top to truly balance out the skill. But give me your guys' thoughts in the comment section below as usual. The secondary skill for the deck would have been Crooked Keith. And this was a little bit of a funny one, just because I wanted to give him a skill that was also representative of him in the anime. He was a complete cheat, a little bit of a scumbag, and I feel like this skill kind of makes it fit really well. So it reads, if your level 7 or higher Dark Machine monster is destroyed by battle, activate this skill. Your normal draw in the next draw phase becomes 2 cards. This skill will only activate once per duel. Well, hear me out. This skill is very, very powerful. However, it has a very high barrier to entry to activate. First, you have to establish a level 7 or higher machine monster on the field. And secondly, it has to be destroyed specifically via battle to get that draw too. I feel like those restrictions alone should make this skill a-okay, and not as broken as the Sartorius skill that just lets you pretty much use Pot of Greed in the deck with Cup of Ace. Just because you actually do have to work quite a bit in order to get this effect off. Now, I do fully realize that a card like Fusilier Dragon does trivialize this a bit. However, Fusilier Dragon is a machine monster that is not very searchable in the deck, especially because the only way that it's searchable, at least in my knowledge, is via the other skill. And you typically can't just play 2 skills in a deck unless you're playing in a very dedicated format. So I feel like because of these factors alone, this could make this skill completely fair. Not very powerful, but kind of fair. I'll say that. Just because it is a hard once per duel skill. I'm overall really happy with these skills. I think these encompass Bandit Keith as a duelist. I feel like the deck overall feels very Bandit Keith-esque. But yeah, I'd love to hear all your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. Also, for the next video, I am planning on covering Bonds. So if you're a big fan of him, I'd consider subscribing to the channel so you guys don't miss whenever I upload that video. But guys, if you guys did end up enjoying, I would really appreciate a like and a subscribe. This whole project took a very long time to produce. I put in a lot of effort, a lot of thought, and a lot of research into constructing all these decks, trying to make them as balanced and realistic as possible. So guys, until next time, I've been your boy Topsy. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.